Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Zennial Report here on YouTube. I'm Aaron Jackson. He is Josh Von Pohl. We're here to talk about some crazy shit going on around the world. Man, we
Say the
were joking
least.
about it before we went live. How what a time we decided to start this podcast up, man. Crazy, crazy stuff going on. We'll be talking about a lot of it today. I know we didn't have a name for it last week. We got a name for the show, the Zennial Report. So we hope more people subscribe. I'm currently in the process of trying to get a logo worked on right now. So we'll get that added, and I'm sure we'll work on getting this thing growed a little bit more. But first off, Josh, before we get going, welcome back again. How are you doing?
Yes, sir, doing great. It's another great day in my world. Not so great in outside it.
Yeah, man, I feel you there, and I know you recently have gotten back out on the golf course. I'm finally, I think next week I'm going to get back out again. I've been clamoring to play more. I've been striking the ball great, but
I don't know if
great
you
weather.
saw my post, but I'm gonna start up golfing and politics little talk show. It's just sitting there hitting some golf balls and bullshitting about politics.
There you go. Yeah, I've seen a couple accounts on Instagram that have done similar things like that.
Okay.
Vegas Vinging is yours, so
Yeah,
make
yeah,
sure
of
people
course.
go follow that. But yeah, I've seen what was it, like that swaggy golf lady, or whatever, who always talks about stuff. Then she goes and
Oh
hits a couple
yeah, I've
drives. Yeah, you know what
seen.
I'm talking about. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, no, that's cool stuff, man. Yeah, great for sure. And yeah, it's been a great time for me. I just got a chance to announce some basketball championship games at the Golden One Center in Sacramento. I got some more coming up in a couple weeks. So, in our personal lives, a lot of great stuff going on. Unfortunately, in the world, a lot of not great stuff going on, and we gotta get into it today and start things off. So. Obviously, the number one news story of the week, of the weekend, as we're recording this now on Monday, is Iran, and that we might be starting up another war in the Middle East. First thing I got to touch on before we even get into some of the articles that we have saved. There are some polls from YouGov that came out. This was a support for initial military action against each adversary taken as close as possible to the day after action. So you go to Afghanistan back in 2001, and support was at 92%. Of course, that was right after 9/11. Everybody was, united in the country after the attacks. 96% Republican support, 90% Democrat support. Iraq in 2003, a little closer to 50-50, but still 72% support overall, 93 Republican, 59 Democrat. Iran, 34%, 69% of Republicans, which is still an alarming figure, 10% of Democrats. And we're going to get into, the media reaction on this as well. But first, we got to start out with the first thing, which is should send alarm bells to anyone in this country. Pete Hegseth, one of our top military officials in the country, not ruling out U.S. troops in Iran. This is from the Defense Secretary saying it. This is an article in Politico. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth declined to rule out deploying American ground forces in Iran during his first public comments on the joint American and Israeli military operation. The Pentagon chief, appearing at the Pentagon on Monday with chair of the Joint Chiefs, General Dan Kane, made the case that the strikes launched over the weekend have no timetable for wrapping up and are meant to destroy Iran's conventional and nuclear weapons programs. When asked specifically about putting American ground troops in the region, Hegseth said that while there are none there now, quote, we're not going to go into the exercise of what we will or will not do. Again, we've already had, I think the number's up. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Josh. Nine, I believe, people who have been stationed overseas that have passed away. We had some jets that were taken out earlier. I know you have something on that, but definitely some crazy stuff going on here. An interesting point was made that is this basically Israel's last chance of getting any kind of support at all for taking out a regime? Because of course, there's also recently pressure on people to do something because of Iran killing tens of thousands of protesters over there and the oppressive regime. Um, Josh, let me go ahead and just get you involved in this. I know we have more we're going to touch on, but just your initial reaction when you saw what we were doing, and just your thoughts on some other aspects of this conflict so far in the first couple days.
Yeah, I mean, let's just get it out the way. This is not our war. This is a war for Israel's benefit. And I don't understand how anybody could support this war. But I mean, the war machine is going to keep turning.
Yeah, I mean, and there's obviously so much money gets thrown at any candidate from
Yeah, like you were saying.
yeah, exactly. So it gets thrown at any candidate when running when it comes to the Defense Department, when it comes to military contractors, and everybody was thinking, oh, Trump's going to be the peace candidate and whatnot, and he made
Yeah,
this
no,
board of
that's
peace
it.
recently, and all of a sudden now you see what he's done, and you mentioned the Israel part. I had to wear the ceasefire now shirt for Gaza today. Of course, that's been going on for years now, and.
Yeah,
And now you even see Israel's attacking southern Lebanon. We've seen the retaliatory strikes from Iran, and I mean, you
yeah,
have
the whole Gulf is getting involved in it now.
yeah, I mean, you have so many other countries that are, getting struck right now. I mean, Saudi Arabia was talking about how
Yeah, it's
frustrated they are
crazy.
about the U.S. not defending them
Qatar
because they're
closing
starting to get
their
strikes.
airport.
Qatar, even Bahrain. There's some U.S. military bases in Bahrain that have gotten struck already. The Strait of Hormuz has been completely closed, which, as we talked about off air earlier, that's going to likely lead to massive spikes in oil and gas in this country, which is, I mean, if people haven't paid attention yet, that's going to get people paying attention. I mean, in my opinion, I don't even see the strategic side behind this for Trump. Like, what does he see in this? Because he has to know his poll ratings or poll numbers are going to go down in the 20s after this. You have to think
I
based
don't
off
think he
the support.
cares. Well, unless somehow they can change the constitution, but he can't win presidency again. So it's like, what does he care?
Yeah, and that's a fair point. I mean, it does lead to thinking what's going to happen in 28 if the Democrats are going to get massive numbers if what happens. At the same time, though, we haven't even really seen the Democratic Party come out and be massively against this.
No,
Um,
yeah, you see support on that side too.
and that's one other thing I wanted to bring up. We'll see what happens later this week, but Congress right now is gearing up to vote on Trump's war powers in Iran. So Congress is set to vote on bipartisan war powers resolutions this week meant to limit President Trump's military operations in Iran. This is an article from NPR. The dual efforts in the House and
Mm.
Senate face uphill battles to become law, as previous efforts have failed in asserting congressional authority to declare war. But most Democrats and a handful of Republicans on Capitol Hill still support the effort to curb Trump's use of military power in Iran after the U.S. and Israel launched strikes on against Iran over the weekend that have already claimed the first American casualties. Quote, the Constitution says we're not supposed to be at war without a vote of Congress. Senator Tim Kaine of Democrat of Virginia, a co-sponsor of the Senate resolution, told NPR's Weekend Edition, this is important. The lives of our troops are at risk. We ought to come back to Washington right away and vote on this. The war powers resolutions have been scheduled for debate and votes before the surprise attack on Iranian military and political leaders. Now that the war is ongoing, it's unclear how or if any successful war powers resolution would immediately change the reality on the ground. And that's another thing, too, because this was something that was getting brought up when there were negotiations that were still going on of peace over the last week or two. And easily, if they wanted to, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer could have brought this to the floor, but they chose to sit on their hands like they always do. And I think it's because really deep down they wanted this to happen. And you're starting to see, I've seen some videos from CNN, some news from them and others that are not at all really coming out against this in major ways. Of course, CNN is about to be owned by the Ellison family along with a lot of our other media because of a massive monopoly that's about to
Paramount.
happen. it with media in our country. I'm really interested to see what is going to happen out of this in terms of just the backlash, but also how our media is going to react on the long term, because Trump has already said this is something that he plans is going to go on for at least 4 to 5 weeks. And we've already seen in the first 2 days that this has cost us nearly $800 million. So this is just another expense to the taxpayer that, quite frankly, a lot of people didn't vote for. I wonder how many people are still going to find a way to defend this, though. And I think that's going to be the interesting thing coming out of all this. I mean, overall, like, what do you see as just the MAGA movement's thought on this? What do you see as the Democrats' response? Do you think there will be any successful limitation of the powers or of what Trump will do with the military? I mean, what do you see, I guess, as the end game out of this? How far do you see this getting?
Well, I think his timeline was what, a month is what he was saying. And he's said today that they're ahead of schedule. So I think what they had 60 to 90 days to get out of there basically and stop bombing them before Congress has to officially get involved and declare war. So I just see them just a complete like doing what they basically did to Gaza, completely annihilating the place as much as they can.
Yeah, I guess if it came up, and I kind of could go either way on this one just because of the history of what we've done in the Middle East the last 25 years. Do you think that this will result in boots on the ground?
I don't think Congress will let that happen.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you because I feel like there's even a divide in the Republican Party right now on this, where you're going to have a lot more of the libertarian leaning groups of people like the Thomas Masseys, the Rand Pauls. I'm not sure if Mike Lee's still in Congress, but other people like that. Sorry, Josh, I think just got disconnected. He's going to come back on in a second. But I'm really intrigued to see what's going to happen with that. So, um, there's still obviously a lot of Democrats as well that are against it. I think you're going to have probably still a select few that will support it, like the John Fetterman types. But we'll see. I think there's a lot that still remains to be seen on it. One thing, though, that does not remain to be seen is there are still United States military personnel that have died already from what we have done. Here is an article right here from the AP. U.S. says Kuwait mistakenly downed 3 American jets during Iranian attacks. 3 American fighter jets were mistakenly downed by friendly Kuwaiti fire Monday during an Iranian air assault, the U.S. military said. All 6 crew members did safely eject from the F-15E
Yeah, that case for
Strike
sure.
Eagles and were in stable conditions after being recovered. I actually did see a video of one of the people that was out there and was fine, but there still have been Americans at military bases that have passed away from some strikes that have happened already as well.
Let me see
And
if
it,
I can pull that up.
yeah, an attack by Iranian aircraft, missiles, and drones was underway at the time the planes were shot down. Iranian state television claimed that Iran had targeted one of the U.S. planes that crashed in Kuwait without elaborating. Explosions could be heard as one of the planes fell from the sky in flames, said witness Ahmed Al-Azhar, who rushed to the scene with about a dozen others as an airman parachuted to the ground. Um, Josh, I mean, I wonder how many lives it's going to take before we actually start seeing massive public backlash. I know there are some protests that are already going on. I know the protests have been set up in some big cities in California.
I'm surprised we haven't seen those already.
I'm a little surprised on that as well. I'm a little surprised on that as well because, I mean, people I think have an idea of, what this could lead to, and they've seen this story before. So I'm a
Mhm.
little surprised we haven't
And
seen
it seems like the
protests.
organization system is in place because they've been able to do it countless times over the last, what, 5 years at least.
Yeah, no, exactly, 100%. Um, and here's an article right here, actually that talks about why people should care a little bit about it right here. U.S. troops have been killed amid Iranian counterattack, fueling air defense fears. U.S. forces say they have hit 1,000 targets in the past 2 days in a race to take out Iran's ability to threaten American personnel and allies across the Middle East.
I
But
haven't
it is.
even
Go ahead,
up to
Josh.
more date. I haven't even up more up to date article from
Oh, perfect.
USA
That's
Today.
the thing. Numbers are still coming in because another thing that immediately comes to mind out of this is we bombed an elementary school over in
Yeah,
Tehran, and the numbers immediately were like 40 or 50 people killed out of that. It ended up being almost a couple hundred kids that we killed,
yeah.
a lot of them being young girls. We also killed, I think, 20 volleyball players in an attack over there too. I mean, and meanwhile, Trump is coming out in one of his first big statements overnight, the first night that he did it, which I believe was Friday night,
Bragging about it.
and he's bragging about it, and he's saying like, hey, this is to all the Iranians, this is your chance to get your country back on track. This is your chance to overtake your country and overthrow it, and have something in place. But and we've already seen the Ayatollah has been killed, but with a lot of these attacks, when we've killed someone over in that region, it has just led to more instability in the long run.
Yeah, we keep. I think they killed like 40 or 50 leadership officials in that one strike that killed the Ayatollah as well. Because Trump was saying, he was bragging about like we had a guy, but he died in that attack too. So we don't know who's gonna become leader. It's just like, oh my goodness.
There's no plan
I,
for it. I mean, we still have no plan necessarily who's going to become leader in Venezuela after we took Maduro out of there. And I mean, now
yeah,
you look at that and it's like, okay,
just I
well,
mean, just look at Iraq. What happened after 20 years? It's worse.
100%. And I mean, you look at, what we did in Venezuela, and the goal was of getting some oil. And now you wonder, okay, well, hey, we got the oil. Is that because we knew we were going to do this in advance?
Yeah,
And
I
there's a lot
saw.
of signs. I've seen some reporting from Drop Site News on this, that those peace negotiations were basically fake peace negotiations, because what Iran has basically said is like, hey, look, we don't want to build a nuclear weapon. We want to have a peace deal with you so that this doesn't happen in the future. And then the U.S. doesn't want to be a part of that. So, I mean, I mean, say what you want
Well,
about
it
Obama,
says,
and there's a lot of bad things about Barack Obama, a lot.
oh
But I
yeah.
mean, we had the Iranian peace deal and under him, and then Trump ripped that up, and now look at where we're at today. So it's interesting for sure. Sorry, Josh, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It sounded like you were going to say something
I
though.
lost my train of thought. But I'll go back to this article. We're up now to 6 U.S. service members have
Yep.
been killed in the United States war with Iran. The U.S. military said as its joint airstrikes with Israel expands, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio promised Washington that the Trump administration attacks on Iran are going to plan. Bottom line, no matter who governs this country a year from now, said Rubio, acknowledging Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah, who was killed in joint U.S. Israeli airstrikes, they're not going to have their ballistic missiles and these drones to threaten us. So it's like we've heard this story over and over. We heard in Iraq, we heard in Afghanistan. It's the same thing. It's just, I think, to weaken the area so Israel can take more land and do what they have been wanting to do for thousands of years.
Well, and this is interesting because kind of going back to that video that we played last week. Again, apologize for the technical issues we had on that last week, but Tucker Carlson literally asked Mike Huckabee, he's like, basically it's the entire Middle East that you would say that they have the right
Yeah,
to, and that would include Iran. He said, it wouldn't be a problem if they took it all. And now look at what's happening with this right here. I mean, you got to
we're
wonder
giving
what,
them a reason to take it.
right? What I mean, what are the true motivations? What are the reasonings behind Benjamin Netanyahu every 6 months coming out and saying Iran is a week away from a nuclear weapon? I mean, he said that before to justify when we went to Iraq. I mean,
Yeah.
so
He
I
said
mean,
it in the 90s
he said it in the 90s, exactly. So I mean, this is something that
before I was born.
is just it's horrible. And again, I mentioned that the Iranian regime is not was not perfect at all. Obviously, this is an article from the Guardian that came out last month. Disappeared bodies, mass burials, and 30,000 dead. What is the truth of Iran's death toll? On January 8th, in a mid-sized Iranian town, Dr. Ahmadi's phone began to buzz. His colleagues in the local emergency wards were getting worried. All week, police had taken to the streets and been met. Or sorry, people had been taken to the streets and been met by police with batons and pellet guns. With treatment, their injuries should not have been too serious, but emergency room staff believed many wounded young people were avoiding hospitals, terrified that registering as trauma patients would lead to their identification and arrest. Quietly Amadi, who remains anonymous due to fear of reprisals, but whose identity, credentials, and presence within Iran during the unrest have been verified by The Guardian, and his wife began treating patients at a location outside Iran's government hospital system. Alerted by a local whisper network, wounded young people flocked to them. Mostly they brought superficial injuries, laceration wounds needing stitches and antibiotics. As Thursday evening wore on, more and more arrived to be patched up. The next day, everything abruptly changed. Protesters kept coming, but their injuries were close range gunshots and severe stab wounds, typically to the chest, eyes, and genitals. Many proved fatal. So I mean, again, we saw with the protests how many people were killed, and you saw some people I've even seen locally in this area, people saying, "Oh, they're advocating for regime change. We don't want them in there." But I think a lot of people are just blind to the fact of what is going to come out of that. What's next after that? A lot of people think, "Oh, we want regime change, and then we don't care what happens after that. We just want it gone." But then you have to look at the next step, and you
Also,
also
it's
have
a
to care about how
giant country of 90 million people who could have
exactly.
different opinions.
Exactly. And the same thing was true with Venezuela when we took out their leader as well there. If it's a leader that it is elected in power and there still is, relatively close majority support. I mean, my thing is this, like we prop up 80% of the world's dictatorships, right? And I mean, you look at, other countries like, okay, why are we not? I mean, I know that they're a powerful country, but why don't we say the same thing about Russia? Why don't we say the same thing about many other powerful countries out there? I know we might have the thoughts of people like North Korea, but you don't see us attacking them. And what's the reason why? Well, they have nuclear weapons. So, everybody's like, oh, we don't want Iran to get a nuke because then they're dangerous. You think it's the same thing about Russia and North Korea? At that point, it's like if you're Iran, you should say, "Oh, we need to get a nuclear weapon so we have a deterrent." You know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
by doing
That's
these
their
kinds of
only survival.
attacks, you're in effect setting yourself up for being more unsafe as a country going forward. So, and again, I don't think that there's a care when it comes to the U.S. I think it's about the military-industrial complex just
Yeah,
making
yeah,
more money at the end of
yeah.
the day. Um, I don't know what's going to happen out of this, Josh, but I mean, you mentioned that there's 60 days until Congress has to get involved. I don't know if Trump cares. I don't know if that's going to stop him. So I'm really wondering, what is the end result going to be on this? We're definitely going to see a lot more death and destruction in the Middle East. We're going to see a lot more Iranian response attacks. Um,
Could see some attacks on our soil.
yeah, we probably will, and that's another thing that you brought up there. It was I want to say down in Texas. I don't have the article pulled up, but there was the one guy who said basically, "I stand with Allah," who did a mass shooting, and you have a lot of people
James.
left, right, and center that are saying that that's a false flag, likely set up by
That one's
someone
interesting.
in intelligence. So I wonder, if we're going to see more false flag attacks. I've seen some people online on X saying, hey, Iran has a missile pointed at Al Aqsa Mosque. Is that going to be used as an excuse for Israel to get more involved or us to get more
Yeah.
involved too? So
And
um,
also for Israel to rebuild their third temple right where that
exactly, yeah. So
stands.
I mean, I'm very intrigued to see where it leads from here, but I don't think it's good. I don't think it's good at all. So
War is never good,
war's never good.
except for the rich and powerful.
Exactly. Yeah. We'll do our best to keep you posted with it, but definitely sad times right now with everything involved on that front. But yep, so that's everything with Iran. Let's go ahead and transition back to some domestic issues on our own soil here. Josh, this is an article that you wanted to talk about and bring up. I have it copied on my end here. Maybe if you want to bring it up and chat about it a little bit, we can have a good discussion here.
Is it the AOL one?
Yeah, the one, yeah, the immigration one. Yep, I think that's a good, or yeah, the Honduran one. So yeah, if you want, I was to say, if you want to talk about it a little bit, we can maybe go a little back and forth on that.
Oh, when did I send this to you? This one's slipping my mind again.
I have it up if you want me to go ahead and start it off here. Yeah, I'll start off. So yeah, for AOL, feds issue second detainer for Honduran national following release from North Carolina jail. A renewed legal tug of war has emerged between federal immigration authorities and local officials in Mecklenburg County following the rearrest of a Honduran national previously released from custody despite an active immigration hold. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security confirmed Thursday that Immigration and Customs Enforcement has lodged a fresh detainer for Arnold de Jesus Guevara Lopez. The announcement follows his February 10 arrest, which occurred after he reportedly failed to comply with the conditions of his bond. Guevara Lopez faces a series of serious charges in North Carolina, including the kidnapping and statutory rape of a child under the age of 15, as well as taking indecent liberties with a minor. This case marks the second time federal agents have attempted to take Guevara Lopez into custody. Records show that ICE originally filed a detainer in February 2025. However, local law enforcement did not honor that request, leading to his release into the community where his local charges were still pending. The incident has reignited a long-standing debate over sanctuary policies, which generally limit how much local police departments cooperate with federal immigration enforcement. So obviously that sparks up, the interesting debate dynamic of sanctuary cities across the country, and if that should be something that exists, and how unsafe that potentially that can make communities. We talked a little bit last week about issues with immigration, and ICE and the protests that there are at schools. um I think it's an interesting discussion to have. I mean, firstly, I'll make my point made, and then we can go back and forth. I'm not in any way, shape, or form against violent offenders who come into our country, illegally, despite not being a fan of how long the process takes in this country when it comes to being legal. I deport them right back. I'm not a big fan of CCOT or some of these detention centers that we have, and keeping them in there or sending them to be mistreated overseas. I would simply say we should deport them back to where they're at, and we should definitely have security on that front to make sure that they are not able to return. But yeah, I'm not a fan of sanctuary cities or policies at all on that front of being able to have these people stay there, especially if it's somebody that has already been convicted of a crime. They shouldn't be allowed to come back, in my opinion. So, um, now, how you go about that, and if that's a reason of why we should have ICE in those communities more, I think that's maybe another discussion. I think that's an interesting, conversation to have. But yeah, Josh, I mean, what's your thoughts on this one here?
I've just been trying to remember why I sent this article to you in the first place. I know I had like something I wanted to bring up. I don't think it was. I just can't remember exactly, but yeah, the fact that this dude is just able to. I think it was something to do with the judges, like allowing these guys to go back out and holding judges accountable if they do reoffend.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that that's an interesting discussion there as well. I think a lot of it could be solved more so if we just have the policies in place to where they're not allowed to come back on a federal level. So in that sense, yeah, I'm not against ICE being there to take these people and send them back. Some people might even look at what I have to say about, not being a fan of the detention as saying, well, hey, what are we going to do to make sure that they can't come back then? And I think that what we should do in those cases is we should have negotiations with the leaders of the countries they come from and say, hey, you keep these people here, and if not, then there should be massive sanctions on those countries. So on that front, I think that that's something that Trump has tried to do with certain countries in Central America, and that's something I would probably agree with them on that front. I'm just not as big of a fan of having so much go towards enforcement and having these detention camps set up and whatnot for people, especially on our own soil. Um, I just think that more money should be focused on, you know, actually processing people the right way.
Needs to be, yeah, we need to turn our money back to this country and not the rest of the world.
Yeah,
Like we could be living so much better.
yeah. No, I totally agree with you there. We spend way too much money on foreign
It's like,
entanglements, as we mentioned earlier.
yeah, I'm doing geopolitics and when all of anybody, millennials or Gen Z, we're just asking for better healthcare, free healthcare, and better education. to get us into a better spot as a country. Because it's like the more access people have, the better things are going to be.
Yeah, and that was actually an interesting conversation that was brought up during the Olympics because Norway won the most medals, and a lot of people were talking about the policies they have over there, how happy of a society they
Oh,
are.
yeah.
Um, there's also certain things that were mentioned when it came to sports over there that I wasn't the biggest fan of, such as participation trophies and stuff. But that's a conversation for another day. But yeah, long story short, I think that we would both agree. Yeah, I mean, if you're a violent offender, you come to this
Oh,
country
yeah.
illegally,
No,
gone. Yeah, 100%, 100% with you there.
yeah,
So,
no questions there. Especially
um,
if it's literally provable.
yeah, exactly. So, good thing there. Let's go ahead and head to the next thing we want to chat about. So,
All right.
Josh, you mentioned to me before that going into the 2024 election, that you are a fan of some of the things that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was talking about, especially when he was running as an independent candidate, and then of course he aligned himself with Trump, and now he's got a position in Trump's cabinet, and a pretty prominent position, and
And not
because
doing
of his
shit with it.
say it again.
Not doing shit with it.
And now, because of his position, he's saying certain things that go back on what he would have used to believe in. So here's
I
another
mean,
article from
he's
the
getting that
AP.
lobbying money.
Getting that lobbying money. Here's an article from the AP. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. fought pesticides for years. Now he's backing their production. For years as an environmental lawyer, RFK Jr. crusaded against a controversial herbicide ingredient known as glyphosate, even winning a landmark case against chemical giant Monsanto by arguing that its Roundup weed killer contributed to his client's cancer. But now that he's the nation's top health official, Kennedy is falling in line with President Donald Trump after he issued an executive order that's aimed at boosting glyphosate's production. The order would also grant limited legal immunity to manufacturers if they're following federal directives. Kennedy on Sunday evening posted a lengthy statement on social media that calls pesticides toxic by design, but frames Trump's move as necessary for agricultural stability and national security. Quote, President Trump did not build our current system, he inherited it. I support President Trump's executive order to bring agricultural chemical production back to the United States and end our near total reliance on adversarial nations. So again, it's just another example of hypocrisy that we see at the highest levels of our government right now. I mean, glyphosate poses many health risks to communities. We've seen irritation when it comes to skin or eye. It's led to skin cancer for some people, nausea, respiratory issues. Another example of us gutting the EPA and not having really any protections against stuff like this. I mean, it's a disgusting carcinogen. I guess as someone who used to like some of the things that RFK Jr. said, and now seeing this, what was your thought when this was something that came out, and the fact that he was coming out kind of in support?
It actually blew my mind because I'm a big actions over words type of person. His entire career was going after these type of companies. So to completely 180 when he gets into a real position of power like that, it just makes you question like, how much did this guy get paid to flip flop like that? But
Yeah, and
I can
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Oh, okay. I can kind of understand where he's coming from because, like, if they completely just ban glyphosate, then the food economy is it's gonna go crazy. But what's the play to get off of it? And why shield people from being able to sue and recover lost wages, time from going to hospitals, doctors, etc. Because it's like if you can't do that and there's no off ramp, then it's just what do they expect it just to keep going? It's like
Yeah, and there's discussion, obviously, about it being, used when it comes to our food, when it comes to farming. There's a really good piece actually that was done last year by More Perfect Union. I really recommend them. They do great work over on YouTube. When it came to Roundup and how they it causes cancer, Bayer's paid out $10 billion in Roundup cancer lawsuits. They're working on trying to rewrite laws right now to give themselves immunity, and I think a big part of that is what Trump's trying to do right now when it comes to glyphosate too. So
I
yeah.
thought I just saw them post about Roundup that they changed name from the glyphosate to something else. It's just such a dirty game.
It is a very dirty game, and so I'm really intrigued now to see what the 5 or 10 year impact will be out of this when it comes
Yeah,
to
cancer rate's gonna
communities,
rise.
especially farming communities and stuff, and ones that have, I should say, big farming, not like individual farming, but when it comes to big companies that
They'll control
own
eighty
big
percent
plots of
of the
land.
food.
Exactly, that control 80% of the food. So we shall see, but no, I'm not going to play it
Yeah,
here. But I do recommend that people go out there and watch that More Perfect Union video. I also don't want
but
to
yeah.
have any copyright on
The
me
two
because
main reasons I did vote for Trump was RFK and Tulsi Gabbard, both who have been a complete failure this presidency so far.
yeah, we've seen Tulsi Gabbard also involved with potentially, trying to garner votes or voting stuff from the election machines down in Georgia as well, and she's been very silent when it comes to a lot of the issues regarding foreign policy and war that have already been taking place
Yeah,
by the Trump administration too. So,
that was her main platform was anti-war,
hey,
and then
I'll be the
Trump took
first
her
person to
in and said,
say
"Yeah, let's do it, anti-war. That's what we're running on."
I wrote in Tulsi Gabbard in 2020, so I was a fan of her. The first political rally that I went to, which was for Bernie Sanders in 2016, she was one of the opening speakers there. That was in Davis. So
So,
I mean, she was a person that definitely, as I was kind of growing into where I am now, I would say I idolized a little bit, and I respected where she was at. And now seeing where she's come to, yeah, it's definitely disappointing. I didn't vote for Trump this election. I also did not vote for Kamala Harris. I voted third party. I've actually never voted for either main political party in any of the elections. But yeah, it's definitely sickening when you see somebody that you used to have a lot in agreement with when it comes to certain issues kind of turn their back and only care about their own pocketbooks.
yeah,
Um,
seems to be the play.
well, good good
Just
stuff there. We want to touch on another cultural topic. We kind of did one last week, talking a little bit about the protests around the country, and another topic that I think is also relates to culture, and a lot of people have opinions on it. Is transgender issues. We see it with transgender. There's been good conversations that people have had when it comes to transgenders in sports. Um, I've seen it even covering high school sports here in California, and certain teams even relatively close that have been impacted by that. But this one isn't about transgenders in sports. This is actually about something going on over in Kansas. So here's an article from the Kansas City Star. Kansas informs trans residents that their driver's licenses become invalid on Thursday. This came out last week. Transgender Kansans are being informed on the eve of a new state law going into effect that their driver's licenses will be considered invalid as of Thursday. Please note, the legislature did not include a grace period for updating credentials. This means that once the law is officially enacted, your current credentials will be invalid immediately, and you may be subject to additional penalties if you are operating a vehicle without a valid credential. Read letters mailed by the Kansas Department of Revenue's Vehicles Division and dated Monday. Some transgender Kansans interviewed by the Star said that they have received the letters. Others who have changed the gender markers on their driver's licenses, state IDs, and birth certificates said they have not yet received notification from KDOR as of Wednesday evening. Um, Iridescent Rifle, a transgender woman with a Kansas driver's license who lives in Grandview and commutes to work in Lawrence, says she has not received a letter yet. Quote, I don't want to get a misdemeanor just for trying to go to work, said Rifle, who changed the letter on her license from M to F in 2023, shortly before Attorney General Chris Kobach's legal intervention forced KDOR to stop accommodating such requests for more than 2 years. Quote, I'm salaried, I'm not working hourly, and not everyone has the same privilege as me, said Rifle, who got approval from her boss to work remotely until she figures out how to drive legally in Kansas. So, people can have opinions on, you know, when it comes to certain things with transgenders, like transgenders in sports, what restrooms, whatnot. I still think a lot of it is honestly just a distraction from bigger issues that happen in the
Yeah.
country. In my opinion, I don't understand. I mean, I know Kansas is, in definitely a redder part of the country, but this is something that I felt like we were kind of past, and now we're kind of starting to see this stuff kind of get brought back more and become more into the light. I'm just a little weirded out why politicians in Kansas feel that that is one of the most important things in their state when
Uh,
they're what in their bottom 10 in the country in education.
I wouldn't.
Oklahoma's the bottom.
I
There's
wouldn't put it past the constituents wanting it. Be like calling into their leaders and be like, "You need to ban these trains." Like just being stupid. Like I mean, you've seen how dumb people can be. Just imagine an entire state like that.
I actually wonder. I mean, I don't know exactly, the makeup of that, but honestly, if this was something you put to a vote in Kansas, I don't know how it would go.
I
I
don't
honestly
either.
don't know. Like, it might be something that would pass, but it's also just I always just wonder why, even at the state level, these are things that people care about.
It literally does not matter to 99% of us. So it's just like, what are we doing here?
I mean, it's
Just
literally
let them do what they want
it
on their
doesn't
driver's
impact us
license.
anymore.
Yeah.
You
It,
know what
it
I mean?
doesn't impact anything. Like literally anything that means anything besides like who they are as a person. Like it's a self-identifying marker.
Well,
We misidentify people even on official records all the time. So it's like, what does this matter?
yeah, and I mean, if you have to, also, I imagine if you have to go back and you're forced to change that, I imagine that that's probably going to cost money to get another license or an ID too. So you're forcing them the inconvenience of that, also putting them through the mental health struggles of that too. I mean,
They're
it
also
is,
doing that to with the Save Act, right? With the voting
yeah,
ID. If women are married, they're gonna not be able to vote in the midterms. It's gonna take I think it's gonna take too long for them to get what is it, like 40 million, I think they said was the number of women to re-register and be able to vote.
yeah, and that's actually another interesting topic too. While we're talking about IDs in general, because it feels like I think that we both agree on that with Kansas and how
Yeah,
unnecessary
it's
that
just dumb.
is. Um, Voter ID is something that's definitely starting to get brought up more as an issue across the country, and like, listen, I'm not against you having to show your ID when you go vote. I'm some places already require that you do that,
I
but
think
what
we should literally have a voter ID. Like you literally get it printed. You go through the process that the our taxes pay for it all. They send it to you, and you show them that when you go to vote.
but let me ask you this question. Do you think that that's something that you should get in addition to when you get your ID when you turn 18 years old, or
If
how
you
would
don't have
you?
a driver's license, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I would be in agreement with you. I guess I differ from you in
If
a
you
slight.
can't get a driver's license, then taxes should be able to afford you an ID so you can vote.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I guess the only difference I would have in that sense would be I just believe in universal ID. I mean, I just think that like what we've seen recently, especially here in California, where I actually know it's across the entire nation when they force you to have a quote unquote real ID where you have to
Yeah,
show
to
like,
fly.
your birth certificate or your social security.
Two forms of ID
Yeah,
to get that.
two forms to be able to go fly
Yeah,
in the country. But A, it's a hassle. B, you're going to be waiting in lines to get stuff, and C, it's going to cost you more money. To me, it's all this stuff, and we've seen it happen with Democrats. We see it happen with Republicans. They want to claim they're the party of trying to lower your taxes, lower your costs. It's just a way for the government to try to get a little bit more money out of you and squeeze you for every cent you own. And I think that that is the most frustrating thing. Is in my opinion, if you're able to get a driver's license and you get an ID and you're good at that point, that should work for voting. It should work for flying. It should work for anything. I mean,
yeah.
eventually, my question is this: are we going to have to show our social security number to get a drink at the bar? Like, I mean, seriously, like, I just wonder what is this going to lead to? It's a slippery slope that leads to so many
What
things.
you're seeing that thing with Claude now, how they're battling with the Pentagon to not let them use their AI because of mass surveillance.
Yeah, yeah. I forget the name of the company, but yeah, it starts with like an A. I want to say
Anthropic.
yeah, Anthropic. Yeah, we've seen that as well. Which I mean, credit to Anthropic for that. I
Yeah.
mean, we'll
Oh
see.
yeah,
You
I'm
know
a
what?
user.
We'll see
So
what
yeah.
Open AI or other AI
They
companies
did.
decide to do.
They announced they would let them do that. I'm pretty sure I saw an article of
Uh,
ChatGPT allowing them to use it for those purposes.
I don't remember the
And
owner of OpenAI, but I remember he's
Sam
pretty
Altman,
Sam Altman. Yeah, why am I
fuck
surprised
that
when
guy.
he's leading it exactly? But no, I mean it's just crazy to me. I in terms of what you're saying, I agree with you. If it's taxpayer funded, and you have something separately that you can give by all means. But overall, I just think if you have an ID, it should be
Yeah,
universal
we should
ID and
literally
show
make
what
it
you're
as
doing.
simple as possible and have an ID for just one thing does all.
Yeah, yeah, I'm right there with you on that. I totally agree. So. Good stuff there. Josh, we were about, I think, to wrap it up, but I know you have one other thing that you wanted to chat about. It looks like you added. So I'll go ahead and let you lead the way on this one regarding marijuana in the country. Go right
Yeah,
ahead.
so I was a little worried about this outcome, but the Supreme Court just heard a hearing today on uh, gun owners using marijuana, and it seems like they're in favor of the lower court's ruling, who said it is unconstitutional to not allow marijuana users to buy guns. So we'll see what the ruling they rule in the end, but it's looking like they're going to start allowing on a federal level gun owners to smoke weed. So that's
Well,
cool,
yeah, I mean,
which makes sense.
I think it should be legal regardless. I mean, what are you worried about? I mean, like
It's-
people who
It
smoke
opens up the
marijuana.
door for
Yeah,
like maybe they start going after alcohol users again.
yeah. I mean, I just think like you know
Obviously, that's not federally illegal, but
if you're smoking weed or you're using THC or marijuana, like that's probably like the last person I'd be worried about owning a gun. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
those
it's
guys
really
are
like the
like
most
a
chill
beautiful
person.
place.
Like I mean, I know that
That's the
for some
last thing I
people,
want to be one of mine.
I know for some people, you know, it may have like a certain
Yeah, no,
effect,
it's
but
simply
like
there's a psychosis to it that like triggers something in some people that make them go crazy, but it's a very small percent of the population with that.
exactly. And so I don't see an issue with it. Plus, to me, not allowing them to have it, that to me is a bit of a violation on our Second
That's
Amendment and our
crazy.
rights. So yeah, I think again, and I don't know if we've really talked about like guns and stuff, but my whole thing with when it comes to gun control is I think the biggest issue that you see, and we've seen with a lot of mass shootings, is parents. This is at least for younger people when it comes to a lot of schools, is parents who don't properly lock up their weapons at home and their kids get a hold of it and then they either do something to themselves or their parents
Or
or
they
other
go and
people.
buy them a gun,
Exactly. And
knowing they have problems and with getting along with people or something.
yeah, I'm of the mindset like, yeah, there should be universal background checks. I do think there should be mental
No, yeah,
health. There
100%.
should be mental health screenings. I am a little bit even worried. I mean, like, yeah, you don't want somebody who's going through depression or whatever to get a gun, but at the same time, like nowadays, there's so many people. It feels like that will have some sort of mental illness or health diagnosis that like what you're probably
Could be
not allowing
considered.
half of young people then to get
Yeah,
a gun at that point. So
yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that. There's probably even certain limits on that I would say where even some of those people should probably still be allowed to own it. There are certain things when it comes to high capacity magazines I could probably support, but in terms of bans, but overall, like I'm not a fan of gun control in any way, shape, or form. I'm not a
It
fan of
just doesn't. It doesn't work.
I'm not a fan of banning assault weapons. I'm not a fan of a lot of policies, honestly, that I see that people talk about. So,
Yeah,
on that
the
front,
gun
yeah,
itself isn't the problem. We need to be targeting the people who are buying them. I mean, not targeting, but like making sure these people are okay to be buying them. Like an extra check is not unconstitutional, in my opinion,
yeah,
if it makes the entire United States more safe.
I think I think the big thing, and a lot of people always roll their eyes whenever I or some other people, and this is again one of my more conservative opinions, whenever we say hey why do we need all these restrictions? Why don't we just focus on the mental health of people? They're like, oh, that's something that's always said, and then nothing ever gets done. And they're right, nothing ever does get done because our government doesn't care about the health and well-being of our people. People like me and you, we agree there should be universal health care. We should have more mental health professionals. We should have
It's
people
just
out there
it's
helping
another issue
people.
that divides us that they can keep using to their advantage to
The,
stay in power.
exactly. The problem is politicians who don't go in there and do the job of actually passing stuff or passing shit that actually will help out the people in the long run when it comes to issues such as healthcare. And that's again what leads to more divide on this issue. So,
Or you
yeah,
think that like Democrats never get any meaningful gun resolutions passed? The bump stock I think was the last federal one that got passed,
yeah,
like a big one that I heard of, and that was Trump.
yeah. And listen, I'll be the first a person to say, I'll say it's like, even though I'm pro gun, like I'm not a fan of the NRA lobbying politicians. Fuck that. I don't
Yeah,
want them to put
no,
their money towards
all
it.
lobbying needs to
It's
go.
just I just care about the Constitution. I don't care
Yeah,
about, give a fuck about an association that's spending money on our politicians. I don't want them to exist. Screw that. So
yeah.
no, again, my thing is people should just have the freedom to do what they want. I'm myself. I don't own a gun. I'm not a gun owner. At some
Yeah,
point
I
in my
haven't
life,
bought one either.
yeah, at some point in my life, I may want to or feel the need to, but
Oh, here's
I'm
a gun stat I just recently figured or learned. You are safer without a gun in your house.
interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I know.
So that's what the stats say.
I know people that own guns that have them locked up at like their parents' houses or other places and stuff,
Yeah,
whatnot.
because
But
usually it's somebody gets into the gun, like a kid or something, and someone gets shot, or a family member knows the gun's there, come and take it, and they use it. So it's just locked. Yeah, we need if when a gun is not in use, there needs to be some type of way to make sure it's not getting into the hands of someone that it's not supposed to be in.
I mean, when it comes to defending yourself too, in general, I think for a lot of ladies out there, they have some mace on them, or for guys or ladies that maybe have a pocket knife, and I think that a lot of
I
that will
think,
suffice. But yeah,
I mean, I think it should be everybody should be able, well, anyone legally allowed to conceal carry should be able to, but
yeah.
it's kind of hard right now because they're so select, especially in California. You have to have a real reason to have the CCW, like you're a person of interest or something, which is it's just like you can't. That's dumb. Just make it available for everybody if you're going to do that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And then on the front of marijuana, I mean, again, we heard that that was going to get totally descheduled, and it's still out there
Yeah,
federally.
hasn't
There
done that.
hasn't done that. There's some interesting little loopholes on that try to make Trump cover his ass, but at the end of the day, he's just another one of those guys that doesn't care about that issue either. So
Wonder if the cigarette lobby got to him and said, "Hey, hey, don't be doing that."
oh, trust me, if Marlboro or Camel or
Or the
any of these
pharmaceuticals.
any of these big tobacco companies could find a way to make money off of marijuana, they would not be against it for sure. But we haven't seen that yet. But at least I don't know exactly the policies out in Nevada, but in California we have a lot of dispensaries around. It's
All
legal
right.
out here. It still costs a lot of money. I've heard
You want
people
to
that
hear what
say
they
it was.
did out here with the money that was supposed to uh, so what happened is they promised that when they were voting to legalize cannabis, that the money would go to help fund the schools more. They did go to fund schools more, but then they took the school funding that was already there and reallocated it something else. So the funding actually dropped over the years.
And that funny. And I was going to say out here, I've heard people that say, "Oh, it was better when it was illegal because now of all the taxes
Oh
that are
yeah,
on
it
it and
was way
whatnot,
better.
it's
Prop
more
two,
money."
what was it, 215? That was the best time. Like right when I think my senior year and a year after was the best time to be buying weed because it's like you didn't pay any taxes. All you did was go to a doctor and told him you had glaucoma or some fucking bullshit, headaches. He gave you your medical card and you can just walk in and buy it safely right off the shelf. It was amazing. Not didn't have to meet up with no sketchy dude at his house, not knowing what he's got.
Yeah,
Like
I'm a fan of legalization, depending on regulation, maybe some regulation, but no taxation.
they overtaxed it.
Unless yeah, unless you could, but again, you're never gonna be able to prove where the heck that money is going to. Look, I'm of the belief of I think every drug that's out there because of the drug war that we've had in place now for 50 plus years. It has led to worse versions of those drugs being created and implemented, and it has led to other drugs that existing out there that get into hands of even younger people and whatnot. Like there's this crazy fentanyl craze we have in this country right now. I'm not a fan of that, but I think also if we would have better drug education, I don't think that people should go to jail for drug crimes. I mean, people always say, "Oh, what if you're a dealer and whatnot?" But
Yeah.
again, that gets extrapolated to a lot of other extents out there too. So I'm not a big fan of drug crimes. I'm not a fan of people going to jail for longer periods of time. I think that all drugs, in my opinion, should be decriminalized. I think it's ridiculous that we have people go to jail for nonviolent shit. So that's an
What
interesting
was it?
source.
Who did it? Oregon? Did they decriminalize all drugs?
It did it for at least magic mushrooms. I know they did for that. I don't know if they've done it for all drugs.
I thought
But
that was somewhere in Oregon that did it.
yeah. Well, that's a conversation again for another day. I know we were just
Yeah,
talking about
yeah.
that. We'll again dive deeper into that at some point, I'm sure. But yeah, great. That's a good discussion to have for sure. So.
Yes, sir.
Well, I think that's going to do it for episode 2 of the Zennial Report. Again, we're looking to record this every Sunday or Monday. We'll have more topics next week. I know we had a couple repeat topics, but again, crazy stuff going on in the Middle East. I'm sure
Iran will probably be a repeat topic for a while.
that's probably going to be something we would have to talk about every week because there's going to be
Yeah,
more developments on that, at least for probably the next month, as you mentioned, Josh. So,
yeah.
no, great having you on again, Josh, as always. I'm glad to be here
Sure.
as well. We're going to have more in a week's time, and we hope everybody, continues to watch and more spread what we're trying to do and subscribe. Again, we're just
Yeah.
two dudes trying to talk about things going on in the world and try to, call balls and strikes as they say. So,
Yeah. Just trying to figure it out in our Zillennial lives.
yep, and we're getting close to the midterm, so I'm sure we'll have stuff on that eventually soon too.
Oh
So
yeah, that's gonna
that
be
is
good.
going to do it for episode 2. We will see you guys again next week. Until then, take care. We'll see you next week.
Later.